Hello, this is Rosangel Perez of Cafecito Break. Welcome to another show. I'm here at the Art House Hotel, and we are here on location being invited in collaboration with the Global League of Women podcast, also known as GLOW. And you know us at Cafecito Break, we are all about empowering women, empowering voices. And I am here with an empowering woman who's empowering other women and creating such a beautiful network, a beautiful community. And I'm so delighted to talk to her today. Her name is Danielle Stroble. But first, I want to let you know that this interview is being sponsored by Art House Hotel New York City, which boasts 291 guest rooms, 3 on-site restaurants, and nightly live entertainment in Manhattan's Upper West Side. Book your next stay at arthousehotelnyc.com, or you can call for group rates and events. So now, are you ready to dive into this juicy interview? Because I've got this mamacita who I have so many questions to ask. You feel like a kindred spirit.
Oh, thank you. Ditto. I feel the same.
How are you? How are you feeling today?
I feel great. We had a great day yesterday with some amazing speakers at the Podcast Row event. I met some amazing people like yourself, and I can't actually wait to go to Williamsburg in Brooklyn to visit you at some point or another. But I feel really good. And I got some sleep for a change. So
I love it. So have you been enjoying your NYC experience?
For sure. I came here obviously for the event, and then I extended the trip on both ends because I thought, well, why not just meet some great people and potentially get some podcast episodes in of my own. So I just started pitching all the people and got a bunch of yeses. So it's a busy trip for me, but I love New York, so I'm happy to be here.
Well, one of the reasons that I'm really excited to talk with you is because you are a woman that has thrived in a male-dominated industry.
For sure. I mean, I would look back now and I wonder if thrived. I feel like I survived, maybe. And it was, I worked in car racing. I worked in IndyCar racing for 20 years.
Wow.
It wasn't a choice that I made deliberately. I don't regret it by any means. But it was just something that happened. And it was hard and a lot of travel. And at the time, I was one of less than a handful of women. So it was definitely an energy that I was familiar with. My parents had a construction company when I was a kid, and so it was all very familiar, but definitely not a chosen path. So yeah, it was nutty.
What do you and why you say that it wasn't chosen?
When I was young, my parents had a business. Like I said, it was construction. And so I would consider myself a very young entrepreneur. I was doing payroll when I was getting out of school, eight years old. My parents did a lot of traveling. So for a very early age, I was business minded. And one thing led to another. I went to college for accounting because I had done all the accounting with the company. And so all of the choices that were put in front of me as a young adult were just kind of, this is the next obvious step, not intentional. I want to be X when I grow up. In fact, I don't think that ever entered my mind. What do I want to do? So one thing led to another. I ended up in car racing. I worked my way up into the industry. It was fun and exciting for a period of time. But again, it just happened to be the next logical step through connections, which at the time I didn't realize how important it was. Now I see back like making connections is everything.
I'm just sort of like taking all of this in because you are the first woman I meet in my life with this experience.
Really?
And so I'm so curious. Like, this is fascinating to me for you to have had that inside look. And I'm wondering, what are some of those things that you learned in that 20-year journey there about yourself?
Quite honestly, I didn't learn a damn thing about myself while I was in it. Mm-hmm. What I learned later, after a few other kind of challenging experiences. I mean, we're all adults, and we probably all have had challenging experiences. What I've learned since then was I spent, the first 30 plus years of my life not even asking myself who I am, what's interesting to me, what do I want to be when I grow up? Who are the people that I want to surround myself with? And it took kind of bottoming out, basically, to realize, like, I got to start over. And so why not just ask myself, how do I want to look when I get to the end of the journey?
No.
It was random.
Can you share a little bit of what that was like for you? What was that pivotal moment or experience, or maybe it was a set of experiences that led you to be like, no mas?
Yeah, for sure. I had two marriages. Neither were successful. The final marriage is kind of what brought me to my knees all at once. I had a child with him. It was a very unhealthy relationship. And I got to the point where there were days where I'm losing my shit. I'm going crazy and I don't even know how to dig out. I chucked it all. I got out of the career. I, at some point, just decided I can't be in this marriage any longer. I had nothing. I literally had nothing but 2 children and a lifetime of experiences that I didn't even want to think about at the time. So it was survival mode. A friend of mine invited me to a workshop, and it was the first time I was postpartum, 6 months, I think. It's the first time I'd been away from my son. I was so afraid to leave my son because I thought I would lose him. I thought the relationship would come out to where my husband would just take my kid away. It was very irrational. But I went to this workshop, and it was all about basically like deciding, how do you want to feel? And 10 minutes in, I was crying, probably because I was hormonal. But it just made me realize I've never asked myself, how do I want to feel? So from them forward, I surrounded myself with people who made me feel the way I want to feel. I would see, just like when I met you yesterday, I was like, I don't know her. I don't know anything about her, but she makes me feel good. And I want to be around her. That's how I live my life now. When I feel stuck, I think, what can I do in this exact moment that's going to make me feel connected or creative or, like collaborative. And then I just do that, even if it means picking up a crayon and, whatever, coloring into a kid's menu at a restaurant. And that's how I just took every step forward. And then I realized the value of connection. I mean, my entire life was disconnected. I felt betrayed. I felt isolated. And the more I surrounded myself with people like yourself who just lit me up, I was like, this is freaking cool. And so that's what led me to create Keller Street Co-work. It's like, I just want to create a space where all the people want to hang out and do great shit.
Tell me a little bit more about Keller Street.
Keller Street is it's a co-working space in Northern California, just north of San Francisco. It's like a tier 1 market space, very well designed in a second tier market. So Petaluma compared to San Francisco is like a village, but a lot of creative people. So it's a co-working space, but more than that, it's a community of people who have come together, mostly freelancers or small business startups, and they value the connection they're having with one another. That was the aha for me. It started out just in a great space. Mm-hmm. As I've grown this community, I realized the work that's happening with the people there and the connections that they're making and the cool shit that's coming out of it that's what gets me out of bed every morning. It's remarkable. When I opened it, I thought, I'm going to scale this, mm-hmm. and I'm going to, we're going to do it in second tier markets, and I'll have 5 or 10 or whatever. Not to the level of like a WeWork. It's not that. We're very community focused. Now I'm like, this community is so rad. I don't know if I want to scale it. I just want to be here forever.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to, I don't know how this is going to manifest, but first of all, when I met you yesterday, you have this magnetic presence.
Oh,
right.
Thank you.
And that definitely speaks to that inner journey, right? And that woman who looked at all of the challenges, who was maybe so scared and still went forward. Like, that takes so much courage. That takes so much, like, it's like, it looks like it's such a tiny step, right? But that pivotal moment of you going to that workshop with your friend, right?
It feels like it saved my life. Also, I was in survival mode. And so I appreciate you saying it was courageous. And probably on some level it was. But I think, the idea that people sometimes have to hit rock bottom in order to discover who they are or what's going to be the next great thing, as sucky as it is, there's value in that because you get into a mode of survival and you're ready to try anything. You're willing to get down on your knees and say, I will do anything to feel better. And for some of us, hopefully most of us, if we can translate that feeling to our relationships, because I feel like I will do anything to feel better, and I'm going to take anybody along I can carry. Like, you want to feel better? Come with me. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to feel better together.
I love that.
I think if everybody did that, if everybody just tried to connect and bring the crowd along with them, gosh, what kind of world would we live in? Like, when we're thinking about our connectedness and what we can accomplish as humanity as opposed to just me. I feel like everybody should think that way.
And, I mean, and in some ways, I feel like these kind of things, like what you're doing, are what we need, are the steps that we need to go back to community, because there's so many things that are happening in all of our communities, whether it's an urban community or more suburban or rural. But there are a lot of very specific things that are happening right under our nose.
Right under our nose, exactly.
And we're not getting any, we're living so far removed from one another, and the convenience of the smart life.
Yeah. It's just making us all very dumb, I think.
Yes. And also, in a sense, and I don't mean to offend anyone, almost kind of lazy. I don't want to leave my house.
Yeah.
I could even buy a mirror and exercise with it.
Yeah.
Right?
But how lonely is it?
It is lonely.
I mean,
so this is what I mean. Like, when I see you talking about and witness you speaking about this community that you're building, I see you light up, right? And I think that's beautiful, because when we as human beings, when we go through things that rock you, when you are in survival mode, well, I don't even know what the statistics are, but there's so many people that do not see that that's a possibility, that that's a doorway to another future.
Yeah.
Right. And it could be the simplest little decision, going to that invitation, that class, that yoga class, that it could be having dinner with a girlfriend you haven't seen in a long time, that just sparks that magic where you're like, I haven't felt this energized by the presence of another human being in a long time.
Yeah. It's funny, you kind of mentioned manifesting. I most of my life, like literally up until about 6 months ago, I was the jam the square peg into the round hole person. I'm going to control it all. Like, I'm going to go down in flames, but I'm going to control how hot those flames are. And I have read a bajillion books that all have essentially the same message about just how you manifest stuff in your life, and in different voices and different verbiage, but it's all the same story. And I just read one recently that resonated and kind of clicked for me. And so I've been on this very recent journey of just kind of putting it out there. And I don't mean putting it out there and just waiting for everything to fall in your lap. You do work toward it, but trying to stop control of when it's going to happen or what it's going to look like, which is exactly how I ended up here, to be quite honest. I had I been in my regular mode of operation, I probably would have overthought all of the reasons why I shouldn't be here. And so much great stuff has come out of literally the last 24 hours. I can't even stand it. But that needs to be a conversation more.
Yes.
Just there's so much good that can happen when you have good intention behind it, and then you just let it go and let it happen. And I think that moment in which I decided to go to that workshop was a moment, a flashing moment, but I was like, all right, I'm going to go, because I just don't know what else to do. And it definitely changed the course for sure.
And how would you have known that you would be impacting lives the way you're doing right now?
Oh,
right?
You just gave me goosebumps. Thank you for saying that. There's one thing I have known all my life, and I don't know how to describe it. And I never say it out loud because it sounds very egotistical, but there's always been a voice in my head that has said to me, you're meant to do something bigger. And I don't think it means you need to whatever, be famous or that type of thing. It just always felt like I was playing smaller than I was. And even if my community is only 75 people right now in this space, and, you know, a little bit more extended outside of the co-working space, that feels so much bigger to me than the literally hundreds and hundreds of people that I traveled around the world with in this industry. And not, you know, I'm not typically the person to go like men versus women. That's not my conversation really. But I will say there was zero connectedness in that world, right? We traveled, we spent hundreds of days a year together. Nobody was connected. Nobody was connected. And it's like, how did we even exist in that bubble? Definitely wasn't very fulfilling for me.
It's interesting that you went there with that disconnection, because I find that when I speak to women, and this is also a reflection of a little bit of my story too, where taking on this journey or coming from careers that were male dominated and moving into what feels more feminine, right? And again, this is not about masculine, feminine, or any bashing at all. It's information, it's experiences. How do you take this? I have learned, and I'm still learning, how to be more in that graceful space, how to surrender, right?
Yes.
How to work with the intuition, and how to not be ashamed for feeling like you're meant to do something bigger. Right. And so as you look ahead, right, in big dream world.
Oh my gosh.
Woo!
I literally have just found that big thing that I was talking about in the last couple of weeks. And yesterday literally like solidified it for me. I want to have this conversation about connection, and I want, I've got some stories, man. I've got some stuff that like people maybe don't even believe. I'm willing to get vulnerable and tell my stories if it means that it's going to connect even a few more people. And I want to do it in this podcast world. I have my own podcast. I love the idea of sitting and having these really connected conversations. But I want to do it on stage. Yes. And I just realized, like, that's it. I want to do what we're doing right here, but I want to do it on stage, and I want people out there to feel like they're a part of the conversation. Like last night when we had the comedy show, right? Yes. We were all a part of that experience, and that's how I want to do it. So, and I really don't know, maybe here in New York would be fun.
Ooh, I'm liking what I'm hearing, Mama. And as we start wrapping up, I want to, I want you to share with the audience, your podcast. Like, how do they find you? How do they connect with you?
Totally. Thank you. So I do have a website that connects all of the things that I'm doing, and it's just daniellestroble.com. It'll connect you to the co-working space and a little bit of an idea. Even if you're not local, you can see what we do and why we do it. It will connect you to my podcast. My podcast is called I'm Not Gonna Lie. And it's really just because I say it all the time. I didn't realize I said it, and somebody told me that. So I'm like, all right, great. That's what we're going with. Very conversational, very casual. I'm not trying to save the world. There are way better people who can do that for me, but I'll help any way I can. So what I do is I sit down with great people that I meet anywhere, because everybody has a story and they want to tell their story. So it's a happy hour conversation, and it's exactly what we're doing here. It's connecting and laughing and amplifying each other, and hoping that maybe one person will enjoy the hour plus that it usually ends up being.
I'm sure they will, and more. And wishing you so many blessings and beautiful manifestations.
Thank
you. I pray that we can connect again. And as we wrap up this interview, is there anything else that you'd like to share?
I want to thank you. I want to thank you for just what you brought to the table yesterday and today. You do also have a really great energy, and I think that all the people should experience it. So thank you.
Thank you. And I really hope that our paths connect.
Oh, they will.
Mucho, mucho, mucho. Not just once, but I said mucho. All right. This is Rosangel Perez with Danielle Stroble.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Many blessings.